today's video, I'm going to be breaking down and describing the jungle role in Predecessor. This is to help you better understand the role and ultimately decide if this is the role for you. Hey guys, I'm Stinky Queso. After already putting in hundreds of hours into Predecessor and countless more into other MOBAs, I understand how confusing these games can be. And with almost no information online explaining how to play Predecessor or any of its roles, I'm here to help you not only become more knowledgeable of the game, but also help you figure out which of the 5 in-game roles best suits you. When you spawn in the game as a jungler, obviously you're not bound to a lane and are left to roam into jungle. I'll be showing you routes and strategies later on in the video that will not only optimize your farming, but allow you to capitalize on rotations for your team and secure objectives. First, let's take a look at what your buffs and objectives will be as the jungler. Each team's jungler has 2 buffs in total. You will have a red buff in your right jungle and a blue buff in your left jungle. The red buff deals damage over time as well as slows your enemies from basic attacks. This is good for early game damage on minions and the enemy team. The blue buff grants increased mana regen, ability haste, and extra ability damage to minions. This buff will allow you to farm longer, seeing that you will have a continuous stream of mana and increased damage to the jungle minions. There are 2 main objectives for the jungler to be accomplishing throughout the game, Fangtooth and Prime. First, Fangtooth. This camp is imperative to your team's chance of winning and has the possibility of completely changing the odds. Every time the Fangtooth camp is killed by a team, that team will receive a permanent buff for the rest of the game. Here's a small list of the stacking buffs you could receive from Fangtooth. For the first stack, your team will be given 50% longer jungle and river buffs. The second will provide increased movement speed outside of combat. The third stack is a 6% overall increase to all damage and armor stats. The fourth stack is a 12% overall increase to all damage and armor stats. And every stack after this will continue to add 6% to the overall damage and armor stat increases. It is more than important to secure this camp every time it respawns, seeing that it instantly gives your team increased bonuses that can help win fights and games. Your second objective is Orb Prime. Up until 20 minutes of every game, a camp named Mini Prime will spawn. This camp is only applied to one player, the one who killed it. It grants increased damage for that player as well as minions close to them. This buff is great for pushing lanes, but doesn't have a drastic impact on the overall outcome of the game. After the 20-minute mark, Orb Prime will start to spawn, this camp being much larger with more health and damage, but increased benefits, giving increased damage, out of combat healing, and mana to all 5 players of that team that killed it. Now that you know the buffs and objectives for the jungler, it's time to show you the best route to farm and maximize rotations for your team. Now, you may already be doing this in your games, and that's fine. This will at the very least help you see the full potential of this jungle route. Starting the game, you'll want to head to and take red buff. After that, just clear the rest of the minions in the right jungle and take a second to assess the map. Look around to see if any nearby teammates need immediate rotation or if you can secure one of the river buffs for that extra mana regen. After this, just head over to the left jungle and clear the first minion camp that you see, followed by the blue buff. And finally, take the last minion camp. At this point, take another break to assess. Now, you have a few options that can change depending on the character you're playing. If you're low on health, feel free to recall and restart your farm. Fangtooth should also be coming up soon as well, so if you're playing a character that you're confident can secure this fast, such as Chimera, feel free to attack it. Or, if you fit neither of these options, then right jungle minion camps have already respawned, and you can just head back over and restart the farm. And continue to do those little pauses to check on your team. Here is a big note for jungler. Do not rotate too early. Until you reach about level 6, you should pretty much only be farming. The only exception to this being defending a tower or rotating to secure a kill with a teammate. If you rotate too early in the game as a jungler, you'll either die, lose out on farm, or both. As a jungler, you can opt for 2 different types of builds. You can either go for a damage bruiser, allowing you to tank for your team a little while still dishing out damage, or play as the risky assassin, opting for extremely high damage in return for low health and often low sustain. But don't be worrying about builds just yet until you get a good grasp of the game, its mechanics, and an overall feel of how everything works. Just stick to using the recommended builds. These builds are well rounded and for the most part should let you relax a little while you're still trying to learn the game. If you feel like you've gotten to the point where you're tired of using the recommended builds and would like to start trying new builds, feel free to join my Discord in the description below where I've compiled a list of builds for you guys to use. So just as a recap, starting early game, just stick to farming in the jungle. You're trying to get to level 6 as fast as possible so that you can provide useful rotations for your team. If the need arises, you can leave jungle to give those early rotations, but proceed with caution, as this could possibly set you back on farm and cause you pain for the rest of the game. During mid game, you should still be running the same route in the jungle, with the only difference at this point being that you're rotating 2 to 3 times as much. This is because at this point you should already have all of your abilities unlocked as well as 2 to 3 items completed. You should still be ensuring that you're securing the Fangtooth camp or trying to contest it whenever the enemy goes for it. Late game can be very different based on what type of build you're running. If you're more of a bruiser for your team, you will possibly not be hitting as hard against the enemy, and you will need to start staying close to your team at all times. If you opted for an assassin build, you should hit harder than shower thoughts at 3 in the morning. Depending on how your build looks and how confident you are, you should be fine running around solo, picking off enemy one by one if they're not deathballing. Just remember, as the jungler, kills are not your main focus. Rotations really shouldn't be either. In Predecessor, it should be your main priority to collect as many Fangtooth buffs as you can for your team, as this will decide the winners of the game early on. Obviously, if you can afford to rotate or have the strength to be able to do so, go right ahead. But if you're needlessly rotating early to try to steal kills and end up leaving with no farm or not leaving at all, you will lose. And that's going to be it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video or learned anything new and helpful, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. And before you head out, make sure to check out my channel for my other how to play videos to see if any of the other roles better suit you. Have a great day, guys. Peace.